Let's talk about Saturday. 309 Madison Square Garden. As Rick said, very one-sided. I was blown away by Jon Jones. And I'll tell you what, right here and now, after the Ciryl Gane fight, and we keep blurring the lines here between GOAT and pound-for-pound best right now, no one is denying the fact that Jon Jones, if everything is allowed, no PD infractions can remove you from the conversation. Jon Jones has the best resume, is the best fighter in the history of mixed martial arts. No one will ever argue that. If anyone's arguing that, they're a complete buffoon. The argument is he the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world? Dana White said that after Gane. All right, fine. He kept banging the drum. And he said on Saturday, as long as this man is active, he's number one pound-for-pound. Again, I think he's still confusing the two, but he says as long as he's active. And therein lies the rub. He wasn't active for a year and a half. As far as the rankings are concerned, in my opinion, if you're not active for a year and a half, you get removed. Champion, non-champion, it doesn't matter. He comes back on Saturday, and he does that against Stipe. You're now in the conversation. And now I think there's a serious conversation to be had. Now I do accept if you want to vote him as number one pound for pound, because it was that dominant. It was that one-sided. He made Stipe Miocic look old, look slow. I saw people saying that he looked old and slow. No. Jon made him look old and slow. Jon made him look a massive step below him. Jon was fantastic. That fight impressed me a hell of a lot more than the Ciryl Gane fight. To a degree, I felt like Gane didn't show up. Stipe showed up. He was as laser focused as can be and had nothing for Jon. He maybe had like an uppercut in the second round, and that was it. It was a 10-8 first round. It was a beautiful trip. It was elbows from freaking the depths of hell, not up there, down here. And it was as vicious of a first round. Like, we never see Stipe get manhandled like that. Even when he lost to DC or Francis, those are moments. But he has his moments. He had no moments in this fight. Second round, 10-9 Jon. And then third round, the spinning back kick to the body, vicious. Just crumpled him. And so, yeah, you can now make the case that he is number one pound for pound. I will accept it. Am I voting for it? Probably still going for Pereira based on what he's done. But I don't think it's as crazy, and I certainly would put him above Islam Makhachev now, to be honest. I think it's that valid. It was supremely impressive. To see him at heavyweight do that against Stipe, 40-something or not, 3-year layoff or not, that's still Stipe Miocic. It was a one-sided beatdown. One-sided. And afterwards, of course, look, that was one of Jon's best fight weeks ever. One of his best fight weeks ever on so many levels. Number one, the performance was fantastic. He showed up. He was a star. Madison Square Garden, getting to fight in his home state for the first time. Like, it checked off all the boxes. The way he handled the Tom Aspinall thing from beginning to end was fantastic as well. Playing the heel or not, we could debate all that bullshit all day long. He's dismissing him. He's pushing him away. He's hardly even saying his name. He's calling him an asshole. He's saying he's disrespectful. That only makes us want to see the fight more. It's like in pro wrestling. When Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant fought, they never touched each other until WrestleMania 3, until they were in that ring at the Pontiac Silverdome. And by the time that bell rang, the whole world was waiting for them to touch each other. And that's what he's doing. He's distancing Tom. Knowingly or not, I don't know. I'm actually going to give him the credit. I think he's being very smart and calculated about this, because I think he is extremely smart and calculated. It's only making us want that fight more. It's only making Tom a bigger babyface. It's only making us look at photos like this one, shot by the great Chris Unger of Getty Images, and say, fuck yeah, give me that fight. And let me tell you what, in combat sports right now, MMA, boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, influencer boxing, I don't care what it is, pro wrestling, anything. There's no fight that I want to see more than Jones Aspinall. 2025, Jones Aspinall. Dana says biggest heavyweight fight. I don't know. Who knows? Probably in this day and age, with the money that the UFC is generating, with the gates, with the attendance, it probably ends up being that. I don't know if culturally it is what maybe like Brock Lesnar, Frank Mir was, number 2, but it's gigantic. Give me this freaking fight. Give me this freaking fight. Because of the way Jon has built it up. Tom has done his part. But if Jon would have just sat there all week and said, yeah, I'll see, he's the interim champ, yeah, it should be fun, it doesn't feel the same. Jon pushing it away, calling him an asshole, saying that I might retire if it comes down to it, saying, give me FU money, saying, I prefer the Pereira fight, I'll even drop the belt because I'd rather the Pereira fight, only makes us want to see it more. Only makes us want to see it more. And Tom has done his part. He shows up. He's got the duck. He's got the shirts. He's saying what he needs to say. But Jon was phenomenal all week. Even the part with the gloves. Oh, it had nothing to do with me. But I like them better. And then like look how clunky the whole glove thing was. Oh, they tell everyone on Monday, and they actually tell Stipe on Monday. They tell the fighters on Tuesday. They tell them it's just going to be for the next 2 pay-per-views, including Saturdays. Then they come out on Thursday and say they're gone forever, the new gloves. Then they come out on the broadcast on Saturday and say, okay, it's going to be pay-per-views, old gloves, new gloves on fight night. And then on the post-fight press conference, Dana says it's an inventory thing. And by the time 2025 rolls along, we'll go back to the old gloves. The whole thing seems very last minute. Make no mistake about it. There is no doubt in my mind. Jon Jones said, I don't like the gloves. I'm not wearing them. They oblige. And then they saw the backlash. They saw the response and said, you know what? Let's just get rid of these things. No one likes them. And thank the high heavens, thank the MMA gods, those disgusting gold gloves are out the window. I hate those things. They're disgusting. They're awful. They're an eyesore. No one wanted them. They looked like superheroes wearing them. Go back to the old ones. They tried. They failed. Whatever. It would be nice if they could be a little more curved so that we can, stop eye pokes from happening as often. But, people were saying they're stopping knockouts, all this stuff. Who the hell knows the ultimate reason? But I do know for sure what sparked all of this was Jon saying he didn't like him. And just look how he's handling that with the smile on his face. Oh, man, I really didn't like him. And I was so happy that Hunter, he is playing all of this perfectly. He is playing all of this perfectly. And so give it to us. Next summer, Allegiant Stadium, freaking T-Mobile. I don't care. It sounds like Dana doesn't want to go to a stadium, and who cares? With the prices, with the tickets, with the gates, they could do it at T-Mobile, and everyone will be very happy. Aspinall, Jones, Aspinall, that is the fight. And please, Rick, don't tell me Pereira versus Jones is as interesting. Not with that trip. Not with that ground and pound. You can't tell me with the buildup, with the animosity. That felt like Jones DC. The way he speaks about Aspinall, the last time we heard Jon talk about someone like that, with that type of tension and animosity, was DC. He didn't feel that way towards Anthony Smith or even Dominic Reyes or Thiago Santos. It was Daniel freaking Cormier. That's what I feel in my bones when I feel the build up to this. You can't tell me that friendly, I just want to test myself against another 37-year-old gets you as hyped as what transpired over the past week.
I already wanted to see Tom versus Jon more. That was my number one out of those rankings. I would settle for Tom versus Alex second to that. The gap has now significantly widened. And because of what you said, I think Jon Jones did the best endorsement he could do for that fight this week by turning it down, by saying, I don't want to fight Tom, by doing all the things to make you want it more. He has now put a gap between that. I maintain on a poster to sell to a casual fan, Alex versus Jon will do better and will look better and will get more buys. I want to see Tom versus Jon more. And I already did, but now the gap is pretty massive.
Yo, did you see that pop at the press conference?
Yeah.
When
it was Tom friendly over there.
Yo, and like I said on Saturday night, it wasn't like it was a UK crowd. They weren't in Manchester. They weren't in London. Michael Bisping wasn't fighting on the main card, so a bunch of his fans were there. Dana White has asked, if Jon wins, are you doing the Aspinall fight? And he says yes. And it's like, you know what it looked like, PT? It looked like Ali Pally celebrating Luke Littler's win, right? Everyone's dancing in there for Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall, a year ago, he gets put on this card and no one bats an eye. And now they're dancing in the stands for Tom Aspinall, at least verbally being told that he's going to be next for Jon. The big thing, though, is Jon says in the post-fight press conference, give me FU money. And you know what I was happy about? I was happy, PT, that he said all of that because throughout the week, it was, he's an asshole. I don't want to fight him. He's younger than me. He's bigger than me. All this stuff, which none of it is really significant because, yeah, he's younger, but like they're pretty much the same weight and blah, blah, blah. But I'm happy that he went back to the Francis story, right? It's about the money.
I've been saying this for a very long time. I think we're hurtling towards the same situation.
Yes.
Dana White smiled, I thought, which was quite funny when the press put to him, he said he wants fuck you money, Dana. And then it's like, oh, he's going to get it. And you're like, well, I really hope he does. I agree with everything you said about Jon. I was captivated by him all week. And will he or won't he? Like watching everything he's doing, like what is he saying? I am not as far down the road with it as you seem to be. I think this is all for nothing if we don't get the payoff, if we don't get that fight. And until I hear a date, I will wait to cast my judgment on how brilliant that sell was from Jones, because ultimately if the fight doesn't happen, it means nothing. As far as his fight, so dynamic for a heavyweight like that. And look, I agree with the people who say, "Oh, Stipe didn't offer much," but I also agree with you that his body work in the early rounds really made him redundant. You know, he even if you're going in as fit as a fiddle and your body's hitting that way, it's gonna take away from your performance considerably. And I think that's what happened. Um, One thing I said, I text Tom, I think it was Friday after the press conference, and I said, this is going great. And he said to me, it's I'm not doing anything. And I can remember 2 years ago, and I agree with him, like, no, you aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
You're right, Tom. 2 years ago, no, about a year ago, I was speaking to his dad, Andy, and there was this love in for Pereira, which has continued to this day. And he was kind of saying to me, like, is Tom not doing exactly what this guy is doing and nobody is like reacting to it? Like he's saving cards too. He's knocking people out, all this stuff. And I said to him at the time, I said, you work for your reputation and then your reputation works for you. And I think on Thursday, before that press conference, when that crowd kicked off, that just came into my head. And I texted that to Tom on Friday. I said, you work for your reputation and then your reputation works for you. And that's exactly what happened on Friday. It's a brilliant fight. It's let's not forget that the UFC had let a fight of this magnitude with Ngannou and Jones slip between their fingers. They should get paid really well for this. Jon Jones, Dana White's the guy up there telling us this is the greatest fighter who ever lived. Well,
Yeah.
let's pay him like that then. All right? Let's break every record you have. And that's what he'll come looking for. He's said as much. I want ridiculous money. Let him get the ridiculous money. If this fight is as big as Dana White says it is, they're going to make plenty of it back. It will be an outrageous success. So pay the man what he needs to make this fight happen. And look, I think Tom beats Jon Jones, but he certainly planted some doubt with that display over Stipe because it was tremendous for a heavyweight. Take Stipe out of the equation. For a guy that weight to be moving like that, that's why we love Tom. That's why we've said about Tom since he came to this division. There's no one that moves like this guy. He moves like a cat. Granted, Jon might not be as quick as Tom, but the dynamic display we've seen, it's rarely seen at heavyweight, from grappling to striking. It was spellbinding.
I'd say never.
Yeah.
Dana always talks about his fight IQ. We've never seen a heavyweight move like that. Like throw the arsenal that he threw at Stipe.
Yes,
we didn't really
so
get to
dynamic.
see Jon Jones heavyweight against Ciryl Gane because it was so quick, and that was to his credit to a degree. But I do think that Ciryl didn't really show up. To see those kicks, to see that ground and pound, to see that kind of wrestling from Jon Jones.
The ankle pick?
Oh
That's
my God.
crazy. What are you doing?
He was fantastic. He was phenomenal. And Dana says biggest fight of all time. He says biggest heavyweight fight of all time. So then you need to get paid.
Biggest purse of all time. Biggest
Yes.
purse of all time, if that's to say. Let's do it. Let's not have this thing play out. And
It's going to play out, by the way. It's going to play out.
I've said this for a year. I
Yeah.
know it's going to. I fucking look at every show.
Yeah.
I've said it every fucking time. But what I'll say to the fans is, this is on you, because this is a PR game now. This is a PR game. And when Dana White says one of these guys is holding up the fight, he doesn't want that fight, have better judgment. Think about what's happened here. They've set the table. We know what needs to happen. The only thing that needs to happen now is for these guys to get paid. Tom probably should be, fighting his corner a bit harder and that. Like, he won't care. He'll sign whatever. Jon Jones has said this is the stipulation. So please be aware of it. If this fight isn't booked, that is what's happening.
And by the way, that's exactly what happened for the Ngannou fight. I went through the clips. And Ngannou was Tom. He was literally Tom saying, I'm good to go in the summer. Just give me the fight. It was the exact same thing. Now, let's see what happens. Maybe they right the wrong. Maybe they feel like they could get it done. Who knows? But I will say this, Pizzi. When he said, fuck you money, I was like, oh, are we going down? Are we going down the, like, give me 30 million? Because they're not going to do it. You know they're not going to do it. They're not going to give him that money. And so there's a part of me that's a little bit concerned. And I'm concerned because I want this fight so badly. I don't feel... There was a part of me thinking... So I think we can all agree that Jon would take the fight if he's paid. And I think we could all agree that, Jon saying that he was going to retire and all that. Like, this is all part of the negotiation. This is all part of what he's trying to put out there. But I believe Jon 1,000% that he wants to get paid an exorbitant amount, whatever that number is. And if he doesn't, he has no problem sitting at home or giving up the belt, which is what he did, 4 or so years ago, 4.5 years ago. Jon Jones isn't foaming at the mouth to fight Tom Aspinall. It's the opposite, right? Tom wants Jon. The fans want Tom versus Jon. he couldn't care less. If the byproduct of this fight is getting paid a boatload, he's in. And so he's just going to sit back. And he's 100% right what he said at the press conference. The strongest position to be in when you're negotiating is being willing to walk away. I think he's being 1,000% truthful with us there. And that worries me. That worries me because we saw this 4 years ago. In the end, I still think it happens because I don't think the UFC wants this egg on their face twice. But I am worried about it actually happening because of the fuck you money line. When I heard that, I was like, now he's being truthful. It's not just about, he's 7 years younger or, he's bigger. It's about the money. And we saw this once, not that long ago. There's no reason to believe the same story won't play out all over again. And that would be very unfortunate. What do you think, GC? Does it happen? What are you feeling?
We said on Saturday night, I think it's going to happen. The fact that Dana White confidently said he was just like, he'll get compensated makes me believe that it happens. And to y'all's point, I think despite Aspinall not really doing anything other than just being around this week, like I think the way Jones handled everything, like it has built this fight into like, this is what people want to see. I was walking around the office today, got the Aspinall hoodie on, and some guy came up to me and was like, oh, the Aspinall, that's the one people want Bones to fight. I was just like, yeah, you didn't know who he was last week? He's just like, nope, never heard of him. And like the way Tom, like he got the UFC 309 reaction vlog out the very next morning. Like he's responding to Jon Jones on YouTube. It's doing incredible numbers for his channel. Like it now feels like there has been a mega shift to like, this is the fight people want to see. This is the fight Dana wants to see. And Dana is willing to meet the numbers and make it happen.
The BMF idea is ludicrous. Like, what are we talking about here?
All right, listen, we don't need to, bring the BMF belt into this. I know
when he came out with that last week, I was like, what are we doing?
But it all feels like trolling. When at one point he was just like, I think I want to fight Jamal Hill, who has no plans of moving up to heavyweight, or maybe a Derek Lewis. Yeah. Like it's just like, be serious, John. Like I know you're trolling at this point, but like be serious. He
does it with a bit of a smile on his face and in that tone where you're like
Jamal Hill one. I was like, dude, he's at light heavyweight and he has no plans of coming up to heavyweight. Like stop.
Jamal's like, fire up the camera in the basement. I need to make a 19-minute video about this. This is my chance. Here's the bottom line is if he doesn't do it for whatever reason, economics, doesn't want to do it, he cannot still be heavyweight champion, right?
No. Well, the ball's not in his court, as it has never been. The ball is not in his court. It never was in his court. They have not presented to him a fight against Alex Pereira. They have not presented to him a fight against Tom Aspinall. They have not presented terms on what they're going to pay him for the next fight that he has. The ball has always been in the UFC's court, no matter what Jon said. Jon can talk about fighting Jamal Hill all he wants. Ultimately, UFC is not going to put a Jamal Hill fight on his table. They're going to put a Tom Aspinall fight on his table. What is the price tag that they attach to it is going to determine whether that fight happens or not. The same way they wanted to put a Francis Ngannou fight on his table, and the price tag was something for that. The same way they put that same offer on Francis Ngannou's table, and the price tag was something for that. We keep talking about what Jon wants and all these forecasting, and clearly Tom wants this fight. The UFC is going to have to attach a price to this fight, and it is going to be presented to Jon Jones, and he's going to have a decision to make. He's going to decide if he wants to fight for that price or not. He's going to be able to negotiate, and ultimately, this fight will be dependent on whether the UFC pays Jon Jones enough money to fight Tom Aspinall. It has always been, and it will continue to be. Ultimately, I'm semi-confident that they will come to the table with it, but I do fear that they're going to get to an amount of money in the negotiations where they fear they're setting a bad precedent and have to pay fighters more commensurate with what the Conor McGregors of the world are getting than what the rest of the roster is getting. And I'm not sure they will get there. I'm not 100% confident.
What do you think? What is your ultimate feeling?
I don't think the fight will happen.
What do you think, PT?
Oh, I just didn't like the way Rick answered that there. I thought we're all trying to be happy and fucking geez.
They had the chance to make this fight with Francis Ngannou. The fight did not happen. I'm not confident it will happen.
They want to
Tom
right
Aspinall.
the wrong now.
Yeah.
I don't know if they view it as a wrong.
I don't think they view it as a wrong.
Before we get to this,
as a wrong.
Do our pick, all right, and whether it happens or not. I talked about Chuck with this on Thursday's episode of The Crack. It was fantastic. I'm sure
it was a great one.
Chuck believes, and I tend to agree after hearing him out, that Jones, as solidified and fortified as this man's legacy is, this will be an asterisk on it if he does not fight Tom Aspinall. And this is a separate issue from the light heavyweight run and all of these champions he's absolutely decimated, Stipe included. This right now if he does not fight Tom, the rightful #1 contender to this heavyweight belt, will this heavyweight element of his career be looked at with an asterisk on it, Ariel?
Because of Francis Ngannou, because of Tom Aspinall, I do think so, yes. I do think that John's legacy is a very complicated one, right? Because of everything that's happened, because of the PED, because of the pinch of salt in the Olympic pool, and he still maintains that, he's, even dating back to the Matt Hamill quote-unquote loss, right? There's so much complexity to his career, but there's brilliance as well. When you open the book, and now we get the heavyweight, and you're telling your kids about it, you're like, all right, buckle up for this one, because this one is a little bit weird. Beginning with the Dominic Reyes fight, beginning with the COVID times, beginning with the Gan fight, and fighting Gan and not Ngannou, and then this. This could help not erase what happened in the last 2 years or so, but it does help in the end, saying, like, you know what, he didn't fight Ngannou for whatever reason. Maybe the UFC is to blame, but he did fight Tom Aspinall, who was younger. But if he didn't fight Ngannou and Aspinall as a heavyweight, how could you call yourself undisputed?
Okay, but can we say this is dependent upon Tom Aspinall continuing to be Tom Aspinall, right? We have to acknowledge that. I think
it's right now.
Kind of goes out
right
the window.
Now.
That goes out the window when we talk about this conversation. We talk about the Canelo versus Mayweather. If Canelo does not become Canelo, that fight isn't viewed the same way. This is dependent upon Tom continuing
But right now, in this moment in time, the #1 guy, the one that the world wants to see him fight against,
right? But
is
we're
Tom
not going to
Aspinall.
view it in that window when we're 10 years down the line. If we're 10 years down the line and Tom Aspinall loses his next 3 fights,
Sure.
it will not be that.
No, but
it will not be a stain on his resume. It will not matter.
Well, first of all, last week I talked about this, and I said that I do think Tom ends up being that guy, and I do think this stain will grow if he doesn't fight him. So, but we can only wait and see. I'm just saying, when you're writing the book, I'm not talking about how this will age. I'm saying, if you go back in time to November of 2024 / early 2025, and this fight slips through the cracks and he vacates the title and walks away, that should be noted. In the end, does it become just a footnote? Perhaps. But right now, it's a huge freaking deal. And it's going to take 2 to tango here. He is saying that he's open, but he wants the FU money. The UFC has to determine what that price tag is. Now, we all think that they can afford it, and then some. But it's, do they want to set that precedent? Because then what happens for the next fight and the next fight and the next fight if he sticks around for 3-4 fights? Dana White says at the post-fight press conference, he'll get paid. Don't worry about it. But Dana White's, his ideas as to what that means, as opposed to what John's ideas as to what that means, they seem to be in a good place right now, so maybe that helps, are 2 very, very different things. And so I'm not 1,000% confident. I'm confident that John is open to it. I'm obviously confident that Tom wants it. I'm confident that the UFC wants it. Can they come to terms? Now it's going to be that thing. He's even talking about negotiations in the cage on Saturday. In the cage, he brought up the negotiations. And there is a case to be made that, like, hey, he has a contract with the UFC, but those days are over. The days of them just being like, your next fight is against this guy are over. That was once a thing like 10 or so years ago, but the fighters have smartened up. I believe we have a super chat pertaining to this subject, Frank.
We certainly do. So I wanted to read that out here. Give me 1 second. It says, from Alexander Hurst, it says, if Jones doesn't get the fuck you money at UFC, could he end up leaving and we get Ngannou versus Jones?
No, because he's not a free agent. It is worth noting that Francis Ngannou only has 1 PFL fight left. So, could it happen in that regard? Maybe, but Dana White has already told us he's not doing any business with the UFC. With Francis Ngannou in the UFC. But John isn't leaving. John is not walking away. They've got him locked up and for a considerable amount of time. Good point here from our good friend Ant Evans, who's a part of the team. Dana White spent $30 million or so on the Sphere show. Now, not all of that money was out of his pocket. Of course, some of that came from Riyadh. But do you think Turkey wants to be a part of this? I'd say so. How's he going to tell John that he doesn't have $15 million for the biggest fight ever? Him saying and it's a great point, him saying it's the biggest fight ever, is a negotiation.
His mouth, yeah.
Well, for John, it's like, you said it yourself. It's the biggest fight ever. And what was the gate on Saturday? Like $18 million for a Jon Jones fight? Now, I know MSG, whomever's fighting, is going to sell a lot, but that's pretty damn significant. And what's the rest?
Deontay Wilder money.
what's the rest of the card going to look like? It's not going to be, it's not going to be freaking Izzy and Islam and Alex Pereira on there. They'll put they'll put a couple of top 15 guys in the co-main event, and no one will bat an eye. They could easily not only afford this, but profit off of it and then some. So it's not an issue where it's like, hey man, he priced himself out. Like, no, you guys you're doing just fine. You're having your greatest run ever financially. This is very easy to get over the hump. Here's the thing. Jon knows this. He's aware of all of this. And so he's going to ask for probably more than Deontay money. I don't know. He's going to ask for Canelo money. If Jon comes back and says, give me 65 or something like that million, it does bring up the classic Dana White line that he said so many times, like, yeah, everyone could say they want to fight, but if you throw out a crazy number knowing that we won't meet it, then do you really want the fight? So let's find out. But something tells me this is going to be very reminiscent of 4 years ago. It feels like we are going down that path.
Quick question
One thing,
Frank. Oh, go ahead, Pizzi.
sorry, just one, because it pertains to the super chat we were just asked about. That is another element to this that I think helps Jones and Aspinall. Dana does not want Francis Ngannou's name to be uttered in this conversation whatsoever. And let's not forget, that's the one, right? We've cited it so many times. That's the one that got away. And there has been talk all year about potentially Turkey bringing Ngannou to the table with the UFC. Can he make this happen? That kind of puts more of an onus on Dana to make Aspinall v. Jones, so he can say, this is the one everyone wants. Don't mind that guy. Francis Ngannou, nobody cares. This is the real fight. Everybody knows this is the real fight. So I think that kind of pushes him towards, gives him an impetus to make this fight happen as well.
By the way, if Turkey says to them, here's a $50 million check, dude, in Saudi next year. Like, there's no reason. The money is there. The money and then some is there. You don't think Turkey wants this fight in Saudi?
Awesome.
You know what I mean?
He loves it.
They would sign up for that. They would do that tomorrow for FU money. They will gladly contribute to that FU money.
Whole check. They'll pay his whole check if they were to get that fight. Come on.
And they'll get the credit for it.
Piss.
They'll get the credit.
Yeah.
They made it happen. And then we'll get the Francis fight. And so ultimately, I don't know how this all plays out. What I do know is if they can't come to terms, if he chooses to fight someone else, he can't be heavyweight champ anymore. He just can't. And I'm happy
he agrees with that, though.
It's to a degree. I mean, I think he kind of, says a lot of things. The fact that he said, I'll fight him for FU money keeps the door open. If he would have shut the door and said on Saturday, I'm not entertaining this. You can ask me about Tom a million different ways. I will never fight that guy. I would have come here on Monday saying he should be stripped. You can't not fight the number one contender who is also the interim champion. You can't do that. Like that time-honored tradition in our business. You got to do the job. You got to fight that next guy the same way all those other guys fought him. But he left the door open. So good on you. Now we have to see how it plays out.
I think if the Saudi money comes in, it's the cleanest way to do this. Because if you're Jon Jones...
It's not the UFC setting the precedent of we're breaking the bank. Yeah.
It's a one-time deal, and it's also for Jon Jones, right? We don't expect that Tom Aspinall is going to be haggling over the price for this fight. I imagine... I hope he doesn't do it for free, but I imagine Tom Aspinall will fight Jon Jones for free if given the opportunity, because he wants this for more than the price tag. For Jon Jones, he's at the end of his career. It is about the money, and it should be about the money. And I think he should get his worth, as should Tom, as should every fighter. The Saudi money gives you the opportunity to say, hey, this was a one-time deal. Saudi's footing the bill. Here's how we do this. And it's not Jon Jones, every time you fight, now you make $50 million. Because I imagine that's what the UFC wants to avoid, and why Jon Jones isn't already making that. Conor McGregor exists in a universe on his own. He's the one who's the exception. Everybody else is getting paid less than they're worth, quite frankly. If they were on the open market, they'd be making more. And so it's a precedent thing. You cannot afford to pay Jon Jones that, because then the Jon Jones fights again, and now you have to pay him that again. So the UFC has been very good at controlling their contracts and controlling their salaries in that way. That is why I'm not confident that this fight happens, is because you're setting a precedent. And if you pay Jon Jones what this fight is actually worth, it's going to cost them more than they might be willing to pay him for the next one.
AZ Ray writes, if Aspinall fights again, will that put more pressure on the Jones fight to happen? He cannot fight again. He cannot fight again.
Do not fight again.
That would be a very unwise business decision.
I know I'm the filthy casual here, but my question was, who does Jon, like, in the possibility of him losing, more to, Pereira or to Aspinall? Like, is he comfortable leaving fighting after he loses to Pereira? Because he's like, well, everyone agreed that this guy was just, a monster to deal with.
I think Jon thinks that the Pereira fight is a much better fight for him, and he's right.
He'd be a massive favorite against Pereira.
I mean, look at that takedown against Stipe. Aspinall is much better on the ground. He's obviously younger. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He is not going to get tripped and then beat up like that. And by the way, Aspinall is to a degree a work in progress still. We haven't seen the best of Tom Aspinall, in my opinion. We haven't. We haven't seen him in a 5-round war. We haven't seen him dig down deep like Jon had to do against Alexander Gustafsson. And so this is, to a degree, Canelo versus Mayweather. But I think he realizes, hey, everyone wants this. You all want this so bad. I'm not that interested. I'm not that inspired by it. So fucking pay me. He's not doing anything wrong. He should get paid. He's got an incredible resume. He's the greatest of all time. His own promoter promotes him better than he promotes any fighter on the roster, including Conor McGregor. We've never seen Dana White, as the kids like to say, glaze someone as much as he glazes Jon Jones. Jon should use that to his advantage. You keep telling everyone, I'm the greatest fighter in the history of combat sports, he said on Saturday.
Now, the UFC YouTube channel literally dropped a video 5 hours ago. This is the greatest fighter in the UFC history. Here's why. And it's just an hour-and-a-half compilation of Jon Jones highlights.
Like, they've never done that.
Explanation or anything.
They've never done that for anyone. And there are times where we say, give us that. We want that. We want to see you promote someone in that light, not demote them or just kind of wishy-washy promote them.
I think, Frank, you're asking what's the riskier fight, right? And Tom Aspinall is the riskier fight. I think we all kind of agree on that.
Like, from a legacy standpoint, like, if he fights Tommy and then loses, it's like, do you hang around, or you're like, okay, I gave you what you wanted and I couldn't deliver, so I'm now giving up the belt? And
I think, as we've kind of laid out here across the whole conversation, Jon Jones' resume, you don't need to add a thing to it, in my opinion.
It's certified.
Done.
And he said that at the presser.
It's the cream of the crop. It is the pinnacle. There is not something missing from his resume. The only reason to hang on is the money, and the one that will generate the money at the moment seems to be Tom Aspinall, because everybody wants that, and Dana White has forecasted that, has broadcasted rather, that he wants that. If Dana White wants that fight and doesn't want Alex Pereira, to me, it's a no-brainer. Make the fight, pay for it, and get Jon Jones back in the cage.
Also, in terms of legacy at heavyweight, like you can't keep taking fights at heavyweight and it not be Tom Aspinall.
No.
Yeah. That's the thing. I've seen so many people say that, like, like that it's a viable option to hold the belt and just fight Jamal Hill or whatever. That's crazy. I'd go a step further than the lads, Frank. Yeah, size-wise. As far as your question's concerned, Frank, I would go a step further than the lads. I'd say that Jon Jones hasn't entertained the idea of losing to Alex Pereira. Like,
I was wondering that too.
You just got to look at the guy this week. Like, he is so confident. Like, and it's great to see him like this. Like, that's what you want your champions to be, right? You want them to exude that regal air and have that power over a room, which he seems to have all week. I think there is an element of doubt when it comes to Tom. I wouldn't even say all that much even. Like, I think that's where Jon Jones's head's at. Like, he is unbreakable in terms of competition. Like, you heard him talking about practicing that spinning back kick that inevitably finished Stipe Miocic for 3 months. Like, this guy is, and I used to say about this about Conor when I was around him when he was on that ascent. These people are insane. You have to be insane to do this at that highest level, at that operating in that rarefied air that Jones did, that Conor did 10 years ago or whatever it was. You have to be insane. I think that's where Jones is at. And I just wanted to ask Ariel, I'm sorry to bring it back to Tyson, but just while I was talking about Jones and that regal presence, and I've been around him a few times and I felt it, and I felt it when I was around Conor when he was brilliant, and I felt it around various athletes in my time. What was it like to be around Tyson? Like, does he still, you mentioned being this close to him and you interviewing these guys after the fight and you're this close. Does he still have that aura? Because he must, if he has captivated this many people to watch this event. And I'm sorry for moving off the 309 chat here.
100%, but it's a different aura each day. Wednesday, he was sedated. Like, Wednesday, he gave us nothing. He didn't even move. I was behind him at the press conference, and it was a little underwhelming, but just him sitting there. And by the way, I mean, did we bury the lead? Can I at least get, I mean, I couldn't get credit for being on enough. Can I at least get credit for nailing Iron? I mean, did I not nail
Nailed it so much that you got it in the promo package as Tyson was about to walk.
Iron! No. Is that the new one or is that the old
I
one?
should get the new one.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
You
If
can tell
you're
that's the old one.
if you got the old one, you need
This is yeah.
the baddest. I don't like doing those press conferences. I got to give myself the old Barry H for that
Did you
one.
give the Barry H when you're sitting in AT&T Stadium and your voice is going out?
Well, at that
all
point,
the
it's been
people?
2 days of Barry H because I was like, you know what? I fucking nailed that press conference. I mean, I was freaking humming. I was going back and forth. I mean, I'm calling out Tony Bellew with the mustache and the 50 pounds.
Fisher Price
the
microphone
Fisher
was a
Price.
great line.
I'm threading the needle through
That's
everything.
amazing.
I mean, it was something.
Did
So
you know you were going to be in the intro?
no, of course not.
So,
but
I
it
mean,
was
were
that
you
damn
nice
good.
Surprised by it?
It was that damn good. They were like, put that in there. They probably had another one. They probably had the old one from like Michael Buffer back in the day. And they put Helwani in there because that's the best. I mean, Tyson's family sent me a written note saying no one's ever said his name.
So I will actually
That
take a
good.
Barry H by extension for us shaming you so
Oh,
hard
yeah.
on the
Oh,
arm
win or learn.
and
We
coaching
coached you
you
there,
yeah.
to correctly pronounce
I
out.
walked up there. I was nervous as hell as well. I'm like, please don't fuck this up. You're never going to hear the end of it.
You were only thinking about iron, correct?
I
Not
took a
anything
breath.
else.
I took a breath. And then I did it again when he came back after the intro. Now and forever, the baddest. And there was a moment where I was like, just play it safe and just go Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson.
No. Dare to be great. And you dare to be great.
Iron.
That isn't in the pre-fight promo if you
Yeah,
just say
you're
Mike
right.
Tyson.
You're right. It was great.
All of us in the group chat, like hopping, like, dude, he's doing it.
Yeah,
He's doing
yeah,
it. I was
yeah,
just
yeah.
wondering if he's sitting up there. Meh, meh, meh.
It's 1,000%. Oh, yeah. No, the phone was on the thing. I saw it all.
Oh, amazing.
I saw it all.
Amazing.
So sedated, Thursday terrifying. I mean, walking up there after he slapped him, I'm walking like this. I'm like, please don't hurt me. I have no problem saying I was terrified. The look on it, I said it. It was unlike anything I've seen, not just from a fighter, but a human being. He was being surrounded by guys, and they were all locking their hands because no one knew. And by the way, no one was surrounding Jake. Everyone was just like, get the animal, right? Like he was like a caged animal who had been unleashed, and they were trying to get him back in. And so I asked him one, asked him another. He walked off, and then the Saturday version, it was Mike, but it was almost like he was relieved. You know, like even the line about I have a biting fixation. Like it was almost like he was just like, and he could make a joke, and he could be a little self-deprecating and be happy that it's over. That's the vibe. But he's Mike Tyson. He looks the same. He sounds the same. And you're in there in the ring, and there's 70,000 people, and there's Gronk right over there, and Shaq, and all these people texting you. But I'll say this to you, PT. Like I feel the same way next to Katie and Amanda, and in particular Katie, because I've been like being in the ring next to her after a fight like that, and she was holding the belts, and they had to take them off her shoulders because she was like wobbling. She was that tired, and had taken some big shots. I don't know how she continues to take these shots. And there is a case to be made that maybe the end should be near because her last 4 fights now, Serrano, Cameron 1, 2, and then this one, were all incredible fights. I do want to get to a couple other of the chats. Well, this time it's Jones admitting he doesn't want to fight, and so Dana can't use that line on him again. John, and that's from Michael Carson. Push says John will want minimum $50 million to fight Tom. Shame. And then there's Khalid, who says the head of the Saudi PIF was sitting next to Trump. FYI, yes, he was. Yasser was sitting next to him. So I don't know if that has anything to do with making the Tom Aspinall versus Jon Jones fight, but a very significant figure from that corner of the world was in fact sitting next to Trump and talking to him all night long. Do want to mention Charles Oliveira's win over Michael Chandler. Very dominant, 4 rounds to 1 in my opinion. Chandler gave us a great showing in the 5th, and with that performance alone may have saved the Conor fight if it is a thing. Now Dana's saying back end of 2025. Golly, Lord help us. But I do want to ask you guys, is there an appetite? GC, I'll ask you. Do you want to see Charles Oliveira versus Islam 2 or Charles versus Arman 2, or is it the type of fight where you think it'll just be the same old thing? Like, has there been enough time between either of those initial matchups to make you really interested in the rematch?
I mean, the Arman Sarukian one, absolutely. That was such a ridiculously close fight when they met at UFC 300. And if Charles performs the way that he performed in the first 4 rounds of that Michael Chandler fight, like Chandler had essentially nothing to offer him for the first 4 rounds. He was beating him up on the feet. He was taking him down and immediately getting his back, controlling him, landing big shots. Like he dominated those first 4 rounds. And I don't know who else it would be in the lightweight division at this point if it isn't Charles. I mean, I think he deserves winner of Islam Sarukian. And to ask if I would watch a Charles Oliveira fight is crazy because I will always watch him get into the octagon. And I want to see if it was just an off night, like he says, and he's learned and he's changed his game up, and he really does think he can beat Islam.
They did announce UFC 310 will happen on January 18th at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. Also, site of the first Monday Night Raw on Netflix. They announced that last night. That's January 6th. And they also announced that Travis Scott is going to be the one who produces and sings the new intro. But Intuit Dome, home of the LA Clippers, getting some big events. And so 310 is on January 18th. Oh, 311, excuse me. 311th is on January 18th, but they didn't announce the main event, but we all presume it's Islam versus Tarukian. And so maybe Charles gets a fight, I don't know, July, August, who knows, because then Ramadan is coming up. BetMGM, by the way, announcing just moments ago, our good friends over there, that Tyson Paul, the most bet on combat sports fight ever, as far as they are concerned. Surprised by that, GC?
That it doesn't surprise me just because how many people were watching, but it's hard to wrap your head around.
But it was a sham.
Like I'm thinking like I'm
was
not
a
even
sham.
thinking in terms of like any UFC fight or anything. I'm thinking like massive boxing fights. Pacquiao, Mayweather.
Well, were they a thing back then? I don't know. I don't think they were a thing.
I guess that's true. When I hear MGM, I think,
Yeah, that's a good question.
They've been in Vegas for so long.
That's a good question. Does
But I
it
guess
include
now
that?
you also have to think, like, with the legality of sports betting spreading, is it just that more people had, availability to bet, and that's why it was
just shows how big of a deal it was. Just
it
shows
was, yes. No
how many
doubt,
people
because they
cared.
have been available for at least several years, and there's been a lot of big fights.
What about what I said, Pizzi, on the back end there? Mike Chandler saved at least the idea of the Conor fight happening with the performance in the fifth round. If he would have gotten skunked 5-0 or gotten finished or something like that, I don't know if there would have been as big of an appetite. But the performance in the fifth round and then him getting on the microphone, almost like he won, like he had all of that prepared for if he would have won, I think kept that alive. Also worth noting, it's not like Conor's on a 10-fight winning streak and he should only be fighting people who are on winning streaks as well. Like, it actually makes more sense now that Chandler lost, no?
Yeah, that's my fear was he had committed so many years to not fighting McGregor. The idea of fighting him, potentially dangling in his future, would taking this fight obscure it. I think he's in a great spot still. This is not the Conor McGregor of 2014, 2015. I think he would have looked at that fight and said, I think I can do this. Chandler will certainly be confident he can do it against Conor. A lot of stuff happening with Conor at the moment. Court case still ongoing in Dublin. Closing statements tomorrow. Have to see it. Like, obviously that won't affect him in terms of traveling to the US and stuff, but just a lot of stuff going on with Conor McGregor now. So back end of 2025, all TV deals, all this stuff. You can imagine why that would suit the UFC. And we knew that was happening. Come on, we knew that was happening. The first time this didn't happen, we thought it was a possibility it could be dragged on this far. Still a huge star. I don't know how much juice still left there with Conor. I still like the Chandler fight, and I think he's in a good position to get it.
Bo Nickel defeated Paul Craig, and we'll be joined by him in about 3 minutes' time. His first decision win, his first time seeing a third round in his pro MMA career, improves to 7-0. Viviane Araújo improves to 13-6, defeating Karine Silva. Mauricio Ruffy improves to 11-1 with a hard-fought win over James Lontop. Marcus McGee defeated Jonathan Martinez via unanimous decision. What about Jim Miller getting up to 38 wins, 27, I do believe, in the UFC, most wins and another submission for him. He jumps the ghillie against Damon Jackson and submits him in the first round, and then Damon Jackson retired. David Onama defeated Roberto Romero via unanimous decision. Marcin Tybura defeated Jonta Diniz via doctor stoppage going into the third round. Ramiz Brahimaj defeated Mickey Gall with a tremendous right hook in the first round. The Welsh gangster, Oban Elliott, who we'll talk to in this very studio at 3 o'clock, defeated Basil Hafez via third round TKO. And Eduarda Moura defeated Veronica Hardy, stopping her win streak. You know what's interesting about all of this, guys? We've been talking now for over an hour and a half and obviously a lot went down. It is remarkable how much of a footnote the retirement of the most successful and decorated heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic is. Like, there's just like we could do the whole show and not mention it, and no one would bat an eye. And I don't know if that's just the layoff. I don't know if it's, probably most people thought he was done after the Ngannou fight, and if not for Jones really dragging him back, he probably doesn't fight ever again, and he's very content as a family man and as a fireman. But there he was, just being like, yeah, I'm done. And there's a very good chance we never see that guy ever again. Like, unless it's throwing out a first pitch at a Guardians game or showing up on the sidelines at a Browns game or courtside at a Cavs game, I don't foresee a day where we're seeing Stipe just like around fighting. And it's a little bit sad that he just kind of fizzles out like that. But, the layoff, Jones being such a big deal, the Aspinall fight being such a big deal, being on the same weekend as Tyson Ball, like, I don't see many tributes for Stipe right now, and that's kind of a bummer. But he did seem a little bit apathetic all week long, right? Like, he wasn't.
But isn't that fitting for Stipe?
Yeah,
This is the retirement of Stipe is?
Yes.
Like, he never wanted the spotlight. He never wanted the attention. I would say he actively did. He was an anti-promoter. He did not promote at all. And I imagine it was to the UFC's chagrin. Like, I don't imagine they loved the way Stipe Miocic kind of handled fighting, because he did not want the glitz. He did not want the glamour. Now he's going to never have to be in front of a camera again, go off into the sunset, go to the firehouse, hang out with the boys. And I think it's kind of the fitting way for Stipe Miocic's career to end, to be honest, because it is
no
so
video
Stipe
package.
Miocic.
No,
Didn't even take the gloves off.
He's like, yeah, fuck this shit.
It's Stipe.
I'm out.
They better put him in the
He's
Hall
not
of Fame.
playing the game. He's
By the
not
way,
playing any games.
Nah,
That's it.
he's out.
He's not playing. He
He's
never
out.
played the game.
Is he showing up? If they put him in the Hall of Fame, is he showing
he'll
up?
show up.
Maybe.
He'll show up.
Maybe.
I did see Hall of Famer Anderson Silva this week. What a guy. He is just so content and happy. And it was lovely to see him. And it was lovely to see him translate for Whindersson Nunes at the weigh-ins. Full circle. I don't even know if that is full circle. Is that the definition of full circle? I mean, the guy went his whole career without uttering a single word in English, and now here he is translating. And, the answer was a little long, and I was like, oh, God, how's Anderson going to remember all of this? But, he did enough. He did well enough. One more super chat from Alman. We have Aspinall staring Jones and Pereira before they walk in the octagon. If the UFC doesn't give us Jones, will they give us Pereira versus Aspinall? Will they give us Pereira versus Aspinall? That is a big question, but I don't think Dana wants to see Alex Pereira fight at heavyweight. He said that against Jon Jones, and I think he would feel the same against Alex Pereira. Thanks for watching this video. Hey, before you go, do me a favor, hit that sub button, give us a thumbs up, hit the little bell thingy as well, leave us a nice comment or two. We appreciate you all very much.